It's that time of year again. Comic book movies are playing, TV shows are capping off their season finales, and video games are getting their award ceremonies. But do you know what never stops? Comic books. From start to end, we get comic books all throughout the year, which makes getting a relevant video out on time while trying to account for the comic books I may still read a pain in the butt. But guess what? We did it. We're here, and we're rating the top 10 comics I read this year. Though I will admit this yearly series has become more of like a yearly blog where I talk about how much more I can branch out of my comfort zone. It also lets me talk about comic books I have enjoyed that may not have done well if I talked about them in a video on their own. Here are series that may not have started this year, or even ended this year, but during 2023 they really gave me something to enjoy. Number 10. Queen of Swords. Alright, you may notice very quickly with this list that I love stories about violent women with swords. Like, here's a short, funny to the point fantasy adventure about 3 women killing orcs, hunting down wizards, and slaying all manners of monsters. It's classic swords and sorcery that knows how to juggle the kind of swashbuckling adventure we don't get in many fantasy epics, with some darker themes. The biggest weakness is that it's so short and ends just as we really get to know the characters. But that was the point since that's all I really needed it to do. The art in this series is amazing as well. Artist Corin Howell makes even the simplest of sword fights leap off the page with every swing. The characters are expressive, their personality is seen in the way they move and carry themselves, and while the book doesn't lack dialogue, the characters don't become machines once the fighting starts. Who they are is built into their very core, and each hero has something to like and enjoy about them. Number 9. Red Sonja. Hey, remember what I said about Women with Swords? This new Red Sonja series by Torunn Grønbekk, I hope I said that right, brings back my favorite artist for the character, Walter Giovanni, in a series that really harkens back to my favorite era of the character. She's a ferocious warrior with a dark sense of humor, but you never have to question that she's a hero. She doesn't expect everyone to be good, being imperfect and even a little corrupt seems fun in a way that other fantasy heroes wouldn't associate with. At the same time, there's something gripping about a character who is cold, conniving, and vicious one moment, taking the time to tell 2 boys that they are not men, that they are not warriors, and it's better that way, without sounding anything less than caring. This new creative team truly gets that Sonja never wants to condescend to people who are innocent simply because they are foolish. It's almost as if there is this sense beneath her enjoyment of violence, that she knows that the world is far from what it should be, and she wants it to be different even though it's where she belongs. Also, her expressions when people annoy her are really funny and worth the price of admission alone. Number 8. Action Comics. 2023 has been very kind to Superman. He finally has a new cartoon, he's getting a new movie. Oh, and yeah, his comics are great. Like, after last year's War World Saga, which is multiple volumes of Action Comics, we finally get Superman back home with a storyline about revitalizing the Super Family. They have a lot of members, including 2 new children Superman has adopted. They should work as a team as well as the Bat Family. You know, when DC feels like making Batman a good dad. Turns out though, the Super Family is just as interesting as the Bat Family. They have their own interesting dynamics and issues. Superman hasn't always been the best allegory for immigrants and their struggles, but with the rising tensions between humans and alien refugees, the story feels timely and well thought out. It harkens back to Superman's roots in a way that keeps the character grounded after the epic fantasy of the War World Saga. This is the most comfort food of comfort food comics, and it makes me sad to know that its writer Philip Kennedy Johnson will soon be ending his time with the series next year. It's been an awesome run that captures the best of Superman. Number 7. Superman. Oh, we're still talking about Superman? Why not talk about the best there is for 2 entries in a row? You might wonder, why not group them into 1 entry? Well, Superman and Action Comics do different things. Action Comics focuses on the Super Family and the immigrant allegory. Superman is still the main character, but it doesn't always focus on him. Superman by Joshua Williamson and an assortment of artists is a story that focuses on the Man of Steel being forced out of his comfort zone. Sure, his comfort zone is always being pushed, but now he has to work with Lex Luthor and utilize all the resources the billionaire has to, I guess, entertaining effect. While Batman has lost all of his money, Superman has it, and it makes him feel uncomfortable. Lex Luthor is trying to say he understands Superman better, but at the same time, he tries to remove the Clark Kent from him. At the same time, this book isn't afraid to be just straight fun, with character drama and low stakes that feel more important than saving the world. You know what's fun? Superman trying to fight Silver Banshee, only for best friend Jimmy Olsen. Oh god. Superman trying to fight Silver Banshee only for his best friend Jimmy Olsen to jump into the middle and claim that she's his girlfriend. It's the stuff of soap operas, but it's done so well with art, sometimes from Jamal Campbell, that is fun in a way comics aren't as much anymore, at least ones that I read. When everything else is more serious, Superman can just be fun, and then serious later. Number 6. Batman. Yeah, no, sorry, but one alright crossover event doesn't suddenly mean that this comic isn't still a great Batman run that's diving into Batman's psyche in a new way that feels fresh. In the story before the Gotham War crossover, The Batman of Gotham, Batman was sent to an alternate universe. Most trips to alternate universes feel like they don't have real consequences. Since nothing is happening in our main world, anything that happens in the other world doesn't matter. And it's not a new trope for the main character to go to one where they don't exist or didn't grow up or something like that. Despite being an old trope, Chip Zdarsky truly makes the most out of it. Batman learns and proves to be capable without his money or gadgets. His villains, while not the same as they were on his world, are just as evil without him in it. And the people who are more or less the same as they were in his world tell him things he needed to hear, that he would never learn otherwise. It's far more emotionally cathartic than you would expect, and Batman always seems on the edge of an emotional breakdown as he learns things he wished he knew so long ago. Then, to cap off his adventure with a montage trip through the multiverse, meeting alternate universes we care about, is more than fan service. Most of them have something to say that furthers their own stories, but foreshadows the future of this series. It's the best example of an alternate universe story that you shouldn't skip, and is one of the best Batman story arcs you can read. Though I will admit, Batman is not lacking in great stories, so, we're feasting here. Number 5. The Sins of Sinister. You might be wondering, where are the X-Men? There are actually fewer titles on my top 10 than usual this year, and mostly because it's the end of the Krakoa era. And I'm a big fan of Krakoa. The stories aren't bad, but I'm not gonna vibe with tales about minorities being genocided and persecuted, and to be honest, I'll never understand the people who do. That being said, The Sins of Sinister feels like an incredible consequence of Krakoa without burning Krakoa to the ground. This alternate future is horrifying in a way that's very different from alternate futures like Days of Futures Past or the Age of Apocalypse. In this one, the mutants are on top, but have become their worst selves. With our heroes still around, we get to be entertained by their delectably evil alternate egos. Also seeing just how important it is that mutants do not become like humans. No one is inherently good, and compromising with evil like humans do, like as they did with Mr. Sinister, will lead to mutants developing into the same horror show that humans have. The Sins of Sinister shows us off incredibly well through several event books, many different characters, and a fun adventure against evil that caps off with twists that can only leave room for more interesting things. The worst thing about The Sins of Sinister is that this ending isn't utilized more. X-Men events have been hit after hit for the past few years, and this one is no exception. Number 4. The Hellfire Gala. The Hellfire Gala and The Sins of Sinister are kinda funny. They're both two awesome X-Men events whose biggest weakness is that they're so close together. You don't get to see the consequences of The Sins of Sinister for very long before the Hellfire Gala blows everything up. That being said, both are incredibly entertaining and kept my eyes glued to the page. But the Hellfire Gala isn't great simply because people die, and things will never be the same. It's amazing because it's the ultimate consequence of Professor Xavier's dream. Xavier wanted so badly to be loved by humans, to serve humans, and for mutants to assimilate into human culture. To protect humans, he had to sacrifice mutants. With Krakoa, he thought this was over, that he was not going to protect humans at the cost of mutant peace. We thought he knew they'd never negotiate with terrorists trying to threaten mutantdom, but we were wrong. Xavier would sacrifice mutants for the sake of humans, and now the mutant race has lost everything because of it. When Xavier looks out over his fallen kingdom and sees how everything he has built was destroyed by his own hands, he knows now and forever, no more. Humans are not worth protecting anymore. Number 3. Knights. I love problematic faves. This isn't to say that the book is problematic, so much so that it touches on problematic subject matter, and so far is doing a pretty mature job of it. Admittedly, it has only a few issues in, but, well, I'm judging based off of those few issues, and those few issues are pretty good. For context, vampires have been staples of fantasy fiction for a long time. They are my favorite monsters in fiction, something I've talked about before at length. There aren't as many comic stories that I know of that treat them as something more than action fodder. It's always nice to find one that tackles the different aspects of vampires that make them complex creatures. Knights so far seems to be doing that while also establishing a bunch of other monster creatures in an urban fantasy setting that's just different enough from our world to seem truly fascinating. Even beyond the monsters, Knights is playing with some spicy and problematic character drama that's hard to look away from. The part that always seems problematic about vampires is how it's always a vampire who looks like a teenage boy with a high school girl. and it makes the monster seem scary in a way that's less horrific and just more gross. Nice reverses this trope, and so far paints it as a relationship full of danger even if they're just friends. It's using the monster to serve as a metaphor for situations people will actually find themselves in, and is doing it well in its first few issues. Enough so that I'm completely enthralled, and eagerly waiting for the next issue. Number 2. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman Historia was a landmark comic book series last year, but it's about time for the main Wonder Woman series to get as much love and respect. One of my favorite writers, Tom King, is at the helm of this new ongoing series that feels like it's pushing the envelope in a way Wonder Woman's stories should be. She's not like the other heroes in the DC universe. Other heroes operate, and sometimes even thrive, within the confines of the patriarchy that oversees our society. Wonder Woman was created to actively challenge and threaten that patriarchy. That is what her and her stories are supposed to be about. This run's Wonder Woman doesn't use a sword and shield, but she isn't afraid to call little men out on their crap. While this first arc spends a lot of time establishing the new status quo for Wonder Woman and the Amazons, it does the important thing of reestablishing what kind of character Wonder Woman is supposed to be, and this series does this well. It captures Wonder Woman's character and paints a clear picture of just how massive an uphill battle she has. It's not simply Wonder Woman versus some new villain, but Wonder Woman versus the world. Through the jaw-dropping art that can swing between subdued and visceral at a moment to the sharp dialogue and narration, Wonder Woman is getting the series she deserves. She's not just a superhero for the status quo, she tells the status quo to screw off. Of course, since the first few issues have been set up for how and why Wonder Woman is going to take on the world, I can only be excited about how she's going to do it. But when the why and the who are written and planned as well as this, I can't imagine the how being any less stellar. And number 1, Saga. Last year's champ returns in the same spot. Many things that I like about series such as Wonder Woman and Red Sonja are already being done here, in a story that's knee-deep into breaking my heart again and again. The themes of growth and forgiveness for characters feel ripped right from the ideology of Wonder Woman. The fantasy action and originality that fuels Red Sonja and Queen of Swords can be found on every page of Saga. A lived-in, breathing fantasy world with tropes and monsters like knights continues to be on display in Saga. Saga continues to be a piece of art that could truly only work as a comic book, as it takes advantage of the medium's best features and strengths. The artist, Fiona Staples, captures expression and emotion in a way that a photo couldn't. Emotions like hate and love are illustrated in people who aren't human, but feel more human than people you know. At the same time, space battles, magic spells, and spaceships feel more magical than anything you've seen on the big screen. And it's all wrapped up around in a story about a newly single mom struggling to raise her 2 kids. Saga does what no other comic series comes close to doing, and it meshes humanity and the terribly mundane with a world that never feels less than downright magical. Now if only it would stop making me cry every other issue. That's it. That's our top 10 of this year. I really enjoy the comics this year. I really enjoy stepping out of my comfort zone and reading more indie comics that aren't just one from the big 2. And yeah, if you have your own top 10 list, put it in the comments below. If you have any opinions on how you feel about mine, put it in right there. I may respond, maybe not. As always, like and subscribe. Continue to watch some videos. We might be launching a new little project soon for this channel, or for another channel even. And for more of my own writing, check out somethingcentral.com. Thank you. Good night. Or goodbye. Or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you're doing right now.